In the film, there's a lot of loyalties being tested. Where would you say, like, your characters, where their loyalties lie?
I mean...
Bring her down.
Yeah.
Take her down.
They're right to fear me.
I've seen evil. And I'm looking at it now.
So, Dark Phoenix is a very iconic storyline in the comics. What do you think makes it a special story?
I think what makes it a special story is the fact that it's not just good and evil. This isn't about Dark Phoenix and Jean being two separate entities. It's about a woman who is conflicted, who is disoriented by this thing that's this terrible energy that's within her, and she's a flawed human being. She's not an incredible superhero that just unleashes hell on Earth. She's very grounded in reality. I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that, relate to the inner turmoil, and you know, harnessing your power or the things that make you unique, and whether to see them as special or to see them as a liability.
I think it's a storyline that tears a family apart, which is really something that we can all identify with. I think with X-Men in general, there's a hell of a lot that people can identify with, but that's one aspect of this particular storyline that I think helps. Plus, you're dealing with not just a separate entity, but it's also someone's mental health, and that is such a difficult thing for a family to deal with. And I think that, I don't know, maybe that's partly why we identify with it and have stuck with it for so long, and why it's been such an enduring, iconic storyline. I don't know what you think.
I think that's good.
Thanks.
It's like Mother Earth gone bad.
Wow.
From another planet.
Very deep.
It wasn't as deep as his answer.
Thanks.
It's very rare in any story, but especially a comic book story, to have a hero do villainous things. Usually in comic books, you're either a hero or a villain. And what's so unique about this is someone that is a member of the X-Men family, so a hero, starts to lose control and do destructive, lethal things. So I think that was startling to read when I was a kid, reading the comic books. I think it's still startling to watch. And I think there's a sort of a moral grayness to the movie that is different than other mainstream movies and certainly comic book movies, where there's good and evil, dark and light are kind of murky. What Professor Xavier does has some darkness to it. You know, what Jean is doing obviously has immense darkness to it. What Jessica's character does in this movie, but what the alien characters do in the traditional Dark Phoenix saga is also kind of murky in its morality. And so I think there's elements of that too that feel complex and nuanced, and still relevant today.
I guess I want to say, like, Sophie's performance and how not that the previous one wasn't great, but just I don't know, it's younger. It's a younger film and darker and very real and emotional, and it's tearing apart the family, I think, and that's just interesting to watch. I think there's a lot of conflict there.
It's also super relatable, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just she's evil, you know? I think that you see how we all react to it, and I think that that's how any family would react to something like this happening outside of, like, the superpowers, you know?
Yeah, I think she's wrestling with her past, you know, and wrestling with, you know, the truth. And sometimes I think that's really relatable, you know, and to see that in a superhero movie, and to see the way it kind of, those dynamics work between the characters are really fun to explore in the film, I think.
How would each of you describe your characters in this film?
I would say my character is she's otherworldly, and she comes to Earth to try to harness this Dark Phoenix power, and in doing so she manipulates Jean to use it for her own benefit or for the benefit of her species, but at the same time she empowers Jean.
And I would describe my character as a woman who is out of control and tormented and is at odds with herself and is trying to control her powers.
So they talk in the movie kind of, there's like this line between being a hero and a villain. Like, how do you guys see your characters individually?
complicated. Also very sort of sophisticated in terms of the relationship and what it is that they're fighting for and how they go about fighting it. I think, the fact that these stories were sprung out of civil rights era and the idea that we've always looked towards sort of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King as sort of examples of our characters and what they stand for and the means of getting what they want. Also, the relationship between the two characters is also very sophisticated. They're at odds with one another, but they're also friends. That, I think, is pretty unusual for this kind of fantastical universe.
In the film, there's a lot of loyalties being tested. Where would you say, like, your characters, where their loyalties lie?
I mean,
bring her down.
Yeah.
Take her down.
I don't know. I'd say I'm maybe the most loyal person to Jean in the whole movie, besides
Storm.
Well, Charles
Okay.
is, you're loyal.
She's up there.
But I mean, I think they get split up into two sides, right? There's the people that still believe that Jean, the good Jean, is there, and they can help her find that again. And then there's the other side that's like, she's caused too much destruction. We got to stop her, and if that means killing Jean, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the way people relate to see Jean's power would be different if she was a man?
I think so. I mean, I think in the beginning, yes, absolutely. I think there's a sense with Professor X, the way he treats Jean is with gloves. He's very father figure-y, but like in a
Smothers
deceptive
her
way.
in a way, yeah.
And I find that he manipulates her a lot. And there's something about like let's take care of this little girl who can't take care of herself. I find it kind of patronizing. So yeah, I think if she was a young boy, it would have been different.
Yeah, I agree. You're right.
So we've had 20 years of X-Men movies at this point. What's different about this movie than other X-Men movies we've seen in the past?
I don't know. This feels much more weighted,
Darker.
Yeah.
More real, more emotional.
Yeah,
much more emotional.
I think out of all the films, there's I think the least levity. I think it's really just the whole way through. It's a drama, and you're very concerned and worried about what's going to happen to Jean.
Right away.
Right away.
But it's still exciting, There's all
yeah.
these like amazing sequences. We go to space in this movie, and there's a crazy sequence at the end, and we have a huge fight in the middle of New York, and so I mean it's still really exciting and fun. But at the same time, the character drama is really
The
rich.
fighting is great. At the last act, there's a lot of like karate metal stuff happening. Like a lot of practical fighting is happening and stunt sequences, which are kind of incredible.
Yeah.
All of them are. So there's a lot of that in this film.
Also, like, we worked so hard on those stunts. Yeah. Every single one of us took time out of even our weekend schedules in order to make sure that we had enough training so that when we got there, we knew what we were doing. We all cared a lot about it because it was so stunt-driven towards the end.
What kind of stuff did you do to train for that?
I did a lot of wire work and a lot of hand-to-hand combat, a little MMA. Mama got crazy.
I did a lot of treadmill running and falling.
Did you fall on the treadmill?
Falling on the
Falling
treadmill.
a lot on the treadmill.
Like Taylor Swift in that one thing?
What? I haven't seen that.
I'll show you.
Oh yeah, we gotta
It's
check that
exciting.
out. Yeah, I'd say that the extent of training for me goes just as far as the top zip of my muscle suit.
I wish I could use a muscle suit.
Oh yeah, it's great. People see the movie and they're like, "Man, you look awesome. You're ripped." I'm like, "Thanks, man." It's all muscle suit.
Having been a part of so many X movies, how does it feel to kind of like close the chapter with this film?
It's really emotional for me as a filmmaker, having worked on so many of these movies as a writer-producer, and then I think it was only fitting for me to take the step into directing as the culmination of this cycle of X-Men stories. It feels, like, almost like the end of college. Like you've made these friendships. For me, it's the friendships with the people I've worked with. For the audience, it's the friendships and the relationships with these characters that we've all come to care about and love in one form or another. It's 20 years of storytelling for the X-Men in general, 9 years with the X-Men First Class cast or whatever it is. And you know, I really approached this as the culmination of watching these characters who were strangers then become family, and in this movie get torn apart as family and have to come together in a new way, and say goodbye to some of the members of that family. And so it's emotional, I guess I would say, and bittersweet, but also hopefully you know, uplifting for people, because it is, at its core, the X-Men have always been about family, and this is a movie that you know, rips that family apart and then brings them back together.